Yeah, sure. I didn't know you could do cartwheels.
Ha!
Whoa!
Ta-da!
Wow, that was great, babe.
Thank you, good sir. Hey, babe, I have a question.
The answer is still no, we cannot get 17 more dogs. Maybe one dog.
Funny. Actually, my question is, how do you say no to people so easily? I always feel guilty when I have to say no.
I guess it's just because I'd rather be honest and direct.
Yeah, but some people are so good at pushing people to say yes.
How about if we talk about how to say no on a Planet Business episode? I mean, give people some ways to deal with it, you know?
Oh, that
Cool, a hot air balloon. You see it, babe? Right there.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
All right, so this week's episode comes from a conversation I have had with 4 different clients in the last week, and I would bet a lot of you may be dealing with the same thing. Are you getting requests for either free services, products, or help with projects that you just don't have the time or energetic bandwidth for right now?
Yeah, daily, pretty much.
Well, I was talking more to the audience today.
Oh, sorry. Seriously, though, this is a challenge, really. The question is, how do you decide when to say no and how to do it in a way that doesn't end in frustration and, dinged up relationships?
Yeah, right. It can be really hard to say no, especially right now. You may feel guilty because you want to help, but you're still in business and you've got to protect your energy, your time, and stay focused on the right things in your business.
100%. So before we get into that, let's do thumbnail time.
All right, thumbnail time.
All right. So how are we going to do this?
Do we want to say no to the screen, to the slide?
All right,
What's your
do it.
no face?
My no face?
Do you have a no face?
You know what my no face looks like. It's pretty much on
It's a
24/7.
little scary. Yeah,
All right, so this is my no face.
I can do that. Maybe. Do I look scary?
You could do a smile and I could do a frown like this.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, no, I think we all get a lot of practice with attempting, at least, to say no when we're in business, especially when we're first getting started.
Right,
Because it's hard to say no, especially if you think it's something that might bring you business.
Right.
But there's definitely times to say no.
Right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna each share
Yes.
what works for us in terms of saying no. We have totally different personalities.
Yes.
And
yes.
so we're gonna give you tactics that we think can work for pretty much anybody.
Yes, because different strategies work for different people, and we're about as different as it can get when it comes to how we approach a situation like this. So I'll let you go first.
Okay.
What do you do when somebody approaches you with a project that either isn't a good fit or you just don't want to take it for whatever reason?
I always the thing that I learned about saying no, because believe it or not, I used to not necessarily be the best in the universe at saying no myself.
That's shocking.
I know
to
she
me.
finds it hard, but I took to it really well.
You're very assertive.
Yeah, because I took to it very well. I think largely because I had to. Right, my team's sort of success or failure sort of depended on it. So, depending upon who it is, the basic protocol for me is to find out why they're asking what they're asking for. Very first thing, I always ask a question back.
important.
That's
Yeah.
what you know this about me. Like if somebody says, "Hey, can you blah blah blah?" I come back with, "So tell me X Y Z A B C, and what's that about?"
That's really important because otherwise we get trapped into saying yes to something little and then it turns into something way bigger that somebody expects us to do.
Right.
So that's a great point.
Yeah. So I start with a question, and then I ask as many questions as I can until I feel like if they give up on the question part, then they're not really all that determined. But some people, like the intro said, are really hard to shake, right? And so for those people, depending upon who it is and what position they're in, I try to never give a hard no, although I'm not afraid to give a hard no. What I generally try and do is I usually like get them to a point where I try and moral frame them out of it. So in other words, I'll say like, do you realize how that makes people feel when you handle asking like that, where you just keep going and going?
So direct.
I know, but I'm not saying this is for everybody. You asked me what my method is. And so I'll usually flip it on them that way, and then they'll say, no, what do you mean? I was just asking a question. I'm like, okay, well, it's cool. Totally, but I want you're a friend of mine, or your person XYZ relationship-wise, and I want you to really understand kind of what it could do to your rep if you keep handling it that way. And as far as for me, I'm not afraid to just tell you no. So the answer is no on what you're asking. But the thing is like, I want you to think about it, because this is how it comes off. And then I'll run through the exercise with them if they're being super pushy. But other than that, like sometimes I enjoy actually, like if it's like I remember one time, and don't take this bad, I have a lot of Latter-day Saint church members who are my friends. But I remember two guys came up to me to witness to me one day, and basically I did the back and forth. Like every time they asked me a question thing, I would ask them a question back, and I was doing it just to see if I could shake them, right? But honestly, Mormons are some of the best at like, they don't ever push. They always like try and turn everything that you say into another. I think it's part of their protocol. And so I had a hard time winning with those guys. And so in the end, I actually pulled up a Bible quote. I don't remember what it was at the time. I pulled up a Bible quote and I said, this is one of my favorite scriptures. And the way that the scripture read, it made them understand that they were kind of like keeping going too long in terms of respecting other people. I don't remember what the scripture was at the time. And I looked it up while they were talking to me. I was looking up, let me look something up. And then I used their own sort of like value system, in which the Bible is any kind of Judeo-Christian value system. It's the Old Testament or New Testament, and then the third book of the Mormon book. But like at the end of the day, if you can use someone's own thing on them, that's one way to do it. What's your way of kind of going
well,
about it?
I would say, first off, that works really well. If you're dealing with somebody who's really pushy, one thing you do have to remember is they may not realize how they're coming across, or that they are being really pushy. Like if you've said no and someone is still pushing you to do something that you don't want to do, it's just not a good fit for you, they may not realize how they're coming off. So it might work, or might be a good thing for them too, to have that conversation about how you're feeling about it. My approach is to try to prevent that before we ever get to the point where somebody can be pushy with me, because I am really bad at that direct type of conversation. So what I share with clients and colleagues when they're looking for how do I say no to something is really a 3-part template to say no gracefully and possibly...
She added gracefully to her mix. I
yes,
didn't really...
And possibly still make money in your business, because a lot of times one of the reasons we hesitate to say no when somebody comes and asks us for something is, even if we know we're too busy to take it on,
right,
or even if we know it's something that we used to do but we've moved on from it, we don't want to say no to the money that comes from the project.
Right.
So it's important to say no in a way that you can still make money with it, and that's what I'm going to show you. So there's 3 parts. The first is validate.
Hold on. I want to say something about your method. So her method is better than mine, I've discovered, because she really don't, like, she doesn't really say no like at the drop of a dime, and I do. So, and that works against me, because a lot of times it makes relationships go certain ways. And I just I've always looked at it as collateral damage, and it's like, whatever, I got to get through my day. However, yours is very efficient. So I think people should listen, take some notes right now, because yours is much more systemized than mine. Mine's basically flip it into a question and then use their own system against them. That's basically the whole thing.
And that goes back to personality types. You have to know who you are to decide how to handle something in a way that feels in integrity for you.
Right.
And your approach works really well for you. People walk away from it with maybe a better understanding of how to approach things in their own business and how they're coming across.
Right.
Mine works well for me because it's non-confrontational and it does not generally lead to somebody pushing back. So the first thing is validate whatever the person is asking you, because when somebody asks you for something, that's the first thing they need to feel seen and heard. The second thing is I always give a real reason why I can't say yes right now, but it's about me. It's nothing to do with the person I'm saying no to. It's always about me.
So I say, hey, Michelle, will you come onto my live stream that I'm having next week? I'd love to have you on.
I love so much that you've invited me to do this. The live stream looks amazing, but I've promised my coach that I wouldn't sign up for anything else publicity-wise until I get a few key things finished in my business. Oh. But I'd be happy to share the link on social media.
Oh, that's great. Hey, is it possible for you to, like, we just record a video, and I won't use it anymore until you tell me it's good while I have all this set up. That way we could record something, but you wouldn't necessarily have to have any publicity.
So first off, I would not let myself get trapped into a real life conversation about this. I would not get on a phone call about it. I would force them to put it in writing so that if they pushed back, I don't have to respond. I've already given you a no.
Right.
If you choose to keep pushing, you may not get a response.
What about if it's in person?
I will avoid that in person. If somebody forces me into a situation where I have to feel bad like that, I won't work with them anymore. So keep in mind how you make people feel.
Right.
But that they just completely ignored what I said, which wasn't, I can't be live on your liv stream. I promised my coach I would say no to opportunities like that. It doesn't matter if it's pre-recorded or not. And so if you're pushing me to do something that puts me out of integrity, you don't actually.
Here's actually what I was trying to get at. Is it possible for you to come back to them and say like, all right, I see what you're getting at here, but even still that would, or are you just done with them?
I would be done with it. If I say no once, it's going to be a no because I've already made that decision. What I would do in that situation if someone kept pushing is I would refer them to someone else. So I would ask them, what's the specific topic that you're looking for? And I would refer them to a colleague who could actually participate in it.
So you're giving them alternatives, basically.
So the second part, though, is to give the person a reason that has nothing to do with them. It has to do with you. And I'll give you some more examples in a minute. The third step is to provide alternatives so that they walk away still liking you, even though you said no. So an added benefit of that is you don't have to feel guilty.
I don't have that one in my pattern.
Yeah. I don't. One of the reasons I hesitate to say no to people is I feel like, well, what are they going to do if I say no? Well, that's stupid. There are so many other alternatives to me. I am not the solution to everything, and I'm certainly not the only solution. So keep that in mind when you're saying no. You're not telling them they can't do whatever they need to do.
Right. That's great. So let's give people an example. Let's say someone reached out to you about helping with graphics for their website, or something that you did years ago, but you don't really offer it anymore. How do you handle that?
So I did used to do a lot of website setup and graphics. I outsourced all of the graphics, so don't panic. I didn't do logo design myself. I outsourced them all to a team.
I was having heart palpitations.
Yes, I could tell. And I just managed the process. But here's what I would respond with. So if somebody reached out to me and asked for that, I would say something like, hey, Mars, thanks so much for reaching out and asking me about working with you on, let's say, a logo design. I absolutely love the project you're working on and the message you've got to share. Thank you for what you're doing.
Validating.
Yes. Yeah. So start with that so the person feels good and feels like you actually took a second to think it through. And then go into what's the reason. So my reason might be something like, hey, right now I am crazy booked and I made a promise to myself years ago not to take on work that I knew I wouldn't be able to deliver timely or as my best work. As a fellow business owner, I am sure you understand that. So, and that is a little bit of, you mentioned a moral frame, that is a little bit of saying, hey, you've got to understand this. I know you deal with the same thing in your business, right? Variations on that I've encouraged clients to use is I will literally say, promise me that you will not X, so that they can go back and say, I promised my coach that I wouldn't do this. Because you can put it on somebody else. Have a conversation with your husband, your partner, and say,
Ask me to promise.
Ask me to promise that from time X to time X.
That way you're being honest.
We have that deal on certain hours and certain days. We have a deal that we're working on certain things, so that we're taking time off for, date night or whatever. And I can legitimately, honestly say to somebody, you know what? I've got date night, family time, whatever that night. And then the third part, really important, is to give people an option. So I would say something like, but here's what I can suggest for you. And I'll usually give three options. The first one is a referral to somebody else I trust who can do the project. So another designer in this case is who I would refer them to. The second is to give them either a done with them or a less expensive alternative. So in this case, I'd say something like, check out Logo Nerds. I've used these guys. I love them. Or maybe I'd recommend Fiverr and give them a couple of tips on how to get something good from Fiverr, right? And then the third option I would say is, or you can just go to Canva. There's templates. You can design it yourself. Have fun with the logos. I would love to see your design when it's ready.
Got it.
Something like that, because then the person feels appreciated, and they're appreciative because you've given them some next steps.
It's a great template to follow, and that's why I told you should pay attention to it and follow. Because you notice mine didn't have a whole lot of structure to it, although I realize now I should probably work on it because Michelle does way better with relationships than I do.
Well, you also don't get sucked into projects that you regret generally.
No, I do. But usually for me, it's like they offer to me like $200,000 or something like that, and I'm like, man, because I think back to when I was poor.
That's not a good time to say no. Yeah,
no, I know,
a time
but
to say
I still
yes.
regret it. I still regret it, though. That's the thing about it.
Okay, so a couple of tips for using this. Bonus points, if you've got a video or blog post with do-it-yourself steps that you can refer people to. So if you are getting a lot of requests for the same thing, write up a how-to guide and send it to people when they ask you for help.
Good one.
Yeah, and then mega bonus points if you set up affiliate links or referral arrangements with people. Whatever designer I referred somebody to, I would have a referral agreement that when I send somebody their way, I get a percentage of that, or a flat rate, or an affiliate agreement that I get a percentage, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up, I think, a very useful point. And this right here is why it's important to be on good terms with others who do what you do. Okay. Yeah. I mean, don't just look at them like competitors or the enemy, the nemesis, so to speak. Because ultimately they can be your referral sources.
Yes, that is so true. Sometimes we get so caught up in, but this person does what I do. Great. At some point, there's going to be a project you don't want that you can send their way.
Yeah,
so
that I
stay
use.
friends with them.
I
Yeah,
use that.
you do. You've got a lot of people that you refer people to.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so that's it. Now you've got some ways to say no gracefully so you can stay focused on the most important projects in your business. You can generate cash flow and you can say yes to the right things.
That's awesome. So I'll do the due diligence now.
Okay.
If you're on Facebook, you can either hit, strike, or smash the like button, or you could just tap it, up to you.
Click it.
on the video. And make sure you liked our business page, the Planet Business page. If you're on YouTube, hit thumbs up, or don't hit it, just push it gently, whichever. I'm trying to keep it nonviolent. She doesn't like the violence.
Non-violence good.
And make sure you subscribe so you
Yes.
get announcements to when we're going to be bringing new stuff out.
Absolutely.
And that way you get alerts. Make sure you click the alert button too.
Yes, and if you're listening on the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, and then pop over and find us on YouTube or Facebook too so that you can watch us when we go live.
Yeah, make sure you don't miss it. I usually will follow people in 2 or 3 places so I get the alerts if it's somebody I really like. So basically that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for watching. And we will see you in the next episode of Planet Business.